Hello and welcome to another episode in our series of Premier League season previews for all the sides in the Premier League ahead of the upcoming Premier League season, which starts in just a few days' time. Today we move on to Sheffield United and Southampton, two sides who had up and down 2019-2020 seasons. Andrew Pollard, very interested to see what they both do this upcoming season, though. And for Sheffield United, and I apologise to Sheffield United fans, they're not going to like this, especially not coming from a Chesterfield fan, but is there a danger of second season syndrome?
Was it Sheffield United you had pegged as rock bottom last season?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that Sheffield United. Just checking. Me, I'm a bit more of an optimist, full of optimism. And I don't know, I just think with Chris Wilder in charge, this is a manager that's every season for Sheffield United since he took over in 2016 has been a case of like, oh, but you won't top that again. Oh, you won't top that again. And he's taken them from League One all the way through to the Premier League. And yeah, I think a lot of people like yourself maybe had them tipped to be relegation fodder last season. And yet again, he overcame the odds. He surprised all the doubters. And it was a team that very much, for the longest time, looked like they may just snag European football. And it didn't quite work out after restart. But still, 9th on 54 points, only 2 points off Arsenal, 3 points off Wolves and Spurs who did get European football. Brilliant season from Chris Wilder and his team. And I don't think you can write them off, even though it may, if you look at it subjectively, you can look at it and think, yeah, but they can't do it again. I don't think you can write off them doing it again just because of how well they've overcome the odds in the past 3-4 years. And so, yeah, I think with Chris Wilder, I don't think he seems very much like he doesn't let anything. There's no complacency. He doesn't let any of that sit in. So I think for that, I think there won't be a second season syndrome for their second year back in the Premier League. And I think, yeah, I'm looking forward to watching Sheffield United play again.
Yeah, no, they play some great football, and I'll hold my hands up and along with many other people admit that I got completely wrong last season what Sheffield United were going to do in the Premier League. I think arguably my bias may come from the fact that Chesterfield considered Chris Wilder for the manager's job years ago and decided on probably Dean Saunders around that time. And look at where we are now. Look at where they are now. But enough about Chesterfield here. Yeah, I think Chris Wilder is probably the most integral part of this Sheffield United side. He instills this belief in his players, and they play, you often see championship sides come up and just play desperately not to lose, but they go out there, they play really entertaining, expansive football, and they did so well last season, particularly if you're a fantasy football fan, with John Lundstrom getting all the goals from defence. But let's talk about the rest of the side. Of course, a big loss for them over this summer weird transfer window period is the loss of Dean Henderson. He heads back to Manchester United to deal with the whole David De Gea situation, which you can check out on our preview of Man United season, available right now. But are they going to miss him? Is Aaron Ramsdale quite the adequate replacement?
I think, yes, they are going to miss him, because I think Dean Henderson, to me, is, in terms of English goalkeepers, he's probably, to me, the second, if not the best in the league. So I'd say it's him and Nick Pope. It's maybe it's a 1 and a 1A. But Dean Henderson is going to be a big miss to any side. And the fact that he's going back to Manchester United with the possibility of becoming Manchester United's number one, then that says that, yeah, this is going to be a big miss for Sheffield United. I think in Aaron Ramsdale, him going back to Sheffield United from Bournemouth, I think it's a decent signing for them. I think, yeah, you're not going to have Dean Henderson, but I think Ramsdale, even though he was in a poor Bournemouth team that got relegated, I thought he had some games where he looked absolutely brilliant, and it was one of those where you're thinking, he wasn't at fault there for Bournemouth getting relegated. There was a lot of contributing factors in that relegation, and I think, yeah, for the price, 18 million. Yeah, I think that's not a bad bit of business, really. Could they maybe gotten cheaper, possibly? But then you look at the rest of the market and the prices being talked about, Nick Pope being talked about for 35 to 40 million, and you think, okay, maybe 18 million is about fair. So yeah, they will miss Henderson, but I think Ramsdale's could prove to be a good signing there for them. And again, to me, I trust Chris Wilder.
Yeah, exactly. I think in moving so quickly to get someone like Ramsdale in, I think it's a really good bit of business, especially because sides will know that they are looking for an experienced Premier League goalkeeper. I think this is not the season to suddenly take a gamble on a foreign goalkeeper who's never had any experience of the rough and tumble of the Premier League. Aaron Ramsdale, I think, will do a great job for them. In terms of their other key players, we mentioned Lundstrom as well, obviously alongside Henderson. Who else have we got to look out for alongside, of course, Player of the Year, Chris Basham?
Yeah, it's a strange one in one way with Sheffield United, where when it comes to the joys of modern football here in 2020, and you look at squads, you look at the players available to them, and it's like, oh well, that's the stand-up player, and that's the stand-up player. With Sheffield United, it's very much a squad effort. It's very much across the board. There's no superstars per se. There's just a lot of really good footballers who know their role in a system and are really good at it. But yeah, it's you could go through the team sheet of 1 to 11, and they all they're all just as important as each other, whether it's you talk about Chris Basham, whether it's John Egan, George Baldock, Enda Stevens, Jack O'Connell when he came in, Sander Berger, which was another good bit of business, I thought, and Ollie McBurney, who after the restart seemed to find his goal-scoring boots, and David McGoldrick as well. I think there's just all of them, really, for me. It is. I don't want to make this all about Chris Wilder, but it just comes back to me, the manager, that he knows that whoever is starting for him, that he knows how to get the best out of them. So in that way, there's no star players per se, but they signed Max Lowe and Jayden Bogle from Derby. They seem to have gone through now. But the one that grabs my eye as a Welshman is Ethan Ampadu going there on loan, which I believe was confirmed this morning as we're recording this. And I think that's a really, really good bit of business for them. I think he's a superstar in waiting. And I think to get him on loan for a season, to bed him in to the Premier League football, I think it's a really good deal for all parties, for Chelsea, for the player, and also for Chris Wilder and Sheffield United. But yeah, I think if I was gonna maybe pick out one player, I'd maybe go Sander Berger as the one, just because I just thought he looked like a real top player when he came in January.
I felt very happy for McGoldrick. I thought he was never going to score a goal in the Premier League. He scored like 3, and they all got disallowed for various different reasons. And then, of course, like Busters, he scores one immediately again after that. You mentioned Ollie McBurney there. We mentioned McGoldrick. The big thing for them this season is strikers scoring goals, because it wasn't a great return for them up front. And if teams figure them out a little bit more, then they're going to need to score more goals to stay in the Premier League.
Yeah, and it's this bonkers system that Chris Wilder has of overlapping centre halves. It's just nobody's worked out how to cope with it yet in the Premier League, and that's why I think it's just so great to watch Sheffield United. I mean, without a particular dog in the hunt in terms of Premier League football for myself. There's other teams I like to watch, like Sheffield United and Wolves, where it's just teams that you like to try playing just different sorts of football. And I think the fact that Sheffield United, good old unfashionable traditional Sheffield United, that come to the Premier League with this insane tactics of having their centre backs overlap and basically end up playing as wingers almost. It's just like, this is brilliant. It's absolutely nuts, and it works, and nobody knows what to do with it. Which again, going back to fantasy football, makes Sheffield United defenders a must. But I believe we may do a fantasy football podcast at some point this week. But yeah, it's maybe they get sussed out. But I just have all the praise in the world for Chris Wilder, and I'm sure if teams manage to suss out this tactic, then I think he's got something else up his sleeve. I really rate the man highly.
Yeah, I think as much as I love winding Sheffield United fans up by suggesting they're going to have that second season syndrome, I think at the worst they'll probably finish mid-table, and who knows, maybe a cup run again in there. They made the quarter-finals, I want to say, the FA Cup. It was all around when everything was getting cancelled left, right, and centre. But more of the same, hopefully, from them next season.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like I said just before, they ended up 9th, and it was a little bit like Leicester, where Leicester came 5th, and it was seen as a massive disappointment just because they'd been 2nd for a while and were looked nailed on for at least Champions League football. But in reflection, 5th was a great season for Leicester. And I think with Sheffield United, it tailed off, and there was a bit of a whimper, and they came 9th, and it was like, but they were doing so well. And in hindsight, at the beginning of the season, if you'd have said, right, you're going to come 9th in the Premier League, Sheffield United fans would have bit your hand off. And they had a great season. Like I said, 3 points off European football. That was it. Just one win away from catching Spurs. And yeah, I think very much same again for next season. I think that somewhere between they'll definitely be top half. And yeah, I'd say maybe 8th, 9th to be realistic for Sheffield United. And who knows, maybe if they can get a few more bodies in again before the transfer window. And it seems with Chris Wilder, he's going very much. Okay, there was a Sanderberger transfer in January, but he seems to very much just go with British players that he's watched extensively in domestic leagues over here, with, like I said, the two lads from Derby, Max Lowe and Jayden Bogle, Ethan Ampadu from Chelsea. And so, yeah, maybe I think he comes across more as like, right, I'm not necessarily going to go out and spend 25 million on a player. Sanderberger, an exception, but that's not the regular mantra for Sheffield United and for Wilder. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he can get a few more deals done and who they would be. But it is, I feel like this is just a love-in totally for him. But I think Chris Wilder, I trust everything the man does. And I'm just a Wrexham fan. And yeah, boo to Dean Saunders again. Just oof.
Don't get me started.
I know.
Let's talk instead about Southampton, who could well be a surprise package of next season, perhaps. I think they were 3rd in the away form table. So if they can actually sort out how they play at home, particularly when Leicester come to visit, it could be very interesting for them this season.
Yeah. It's with Southampton, they seem like one of those teams where they didn't really want the season to end because they hit some stride after restart. And I think that a lot of credit has to go to the Southampton board for not sacking Ralph Hasenhüttl when they got turned over 9-0 by Leicester on 25th of October of last year. And then after that, they lost to Man City. Then that was followed up by a loss to Everton. And after the Everton game, they were second from bottom and looking like they were absolutely knackered and done for. To be fair to him, they stuck by the manager and he eventually turned things around. And he had Southampton playing some good football by the end of the year, by the end of the season. And I think it's a strange one with Southampton because if they can build on that momentum, I mean, they ended up 11th in the end, 52 points last season. If they could build on that momentum and the form they showed towards the end of the season, then, I mean, they could be one of those surprise contenders that may be thereabouts, just nibbling away to get a European spot.
Yes, let that be a lesson to you, Watford fans. Changing your manager doesn't always change your fortunes, and sticking with them sometimes works in the long run. I'm a big fan of what they decided to do there, and the fact that, I mean, they looked like a different side, I have to say. When you were looking at them towards the end of the season, you would not believe that this was a side who lost 9-0 and who looked like none of the players were really bothered about playing for Hasenhüttl.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that very much says that how much those players did want to play for him. The fact that, everybody seems to take collective responsibility for that, the humiliation against Leicester. It wasn't a case of the players just, it's the manager, we don't like playing for him, we don't like his tactics. And it wasn't the manager throwing the players under the bus. I remember the post-match interview where Ralph Hasenhüttl come out and just said, that was horrendous. That was my fault. Blah, blah, blah. He tried to take all the blame, but you realise that I think some of the players respect that and they clearly were playing for him. And they went on that run at Christmas where they got wins over Villa, then Chelsea, then Spurs and Leicester in the space of a couple of weeks. And that was really the catalyst then to launch their season. And from there, they kind of peeled away from the relegation zones. And like you said, by the end of the season, especially after the restart, it was like a completely different team. And I think it's a big reward for the manager to see his players bounce back like that. And I think it's a big reward for the a lot of credit has to go to the players for recognising that. But all around, I think Southampton, it's like you said there, it's a really good example of sometimes change isn't always the best thing. No matter how bad things may look, it can always get worse, as Watford have found out. Whereas sometimes if you just stay the course, now and again, things can turn themselves around with a lot of hard work. And credit to Southampton on that front.
Let's talk about Danny Ings then. He had a sensational season. He's played himself back into the England side with his performances over the last year or so. 25 or something goals in the Premier League. What is the latest with him? Because there's always going to be speculation, despite the fact he came to Southampton from Liverpool, that he's going to be linked with bigger sides with a performance like that last season. But I believe Southampton are attempting to offer him a new contract to sort of allay any of those fears for Saints fans. Yeah,
well, it was 25 goals in 42 games, all competitions, which is a phenomenal return for any striker, let alone somebody that's at the supposedly unfashionable club like Southampton, who aren't necessarily renowned for scoring lots of goals. And there was talk in It would have been January. I'm trying all the days and weeks and months blur into one. I'm thinking, when did this one happen? Oh, it's when they got Igalo. Yeah, there was talk when Manchester United got Igalo on loan. At one point, Danny Ings was being linked with a move to Old Trafford, and that was being suggested for maybe the end of the season. Spurs were a team that had been linked with him. He's had a lot of the supposed big boys snapping around him. But yeah, Southampton obviously want to keep him, are looking to tie him down with a new contract. And I think for the player, he seems happy there. I mean, he's scoring goals. He's going to be happy. I think maybe he will have been maybe a little bit burnt by that Liverpool experience. Yes,
I was going to say, yeah, that's a huge factor you sense in him being linked with bigger clubs. That I get game time here, and that's got me into the England side.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he made the big jump from Burnley to Liverpool, and yeah, he was hit by injuries, which he had some horrible injuries, to be fair to him. But it's when he was fit, he wasn't getting much game time, and you're thinking, well, right, okay. You've had the move to Southampton now. You've scored a lot of goals. You're in the shop window if you want that move, but you're playing regular football. You're the man for Southampton. You're back in international football in the England fold. Why would you want to make that move, especially when you've done it once and it's maybe not through fault of your own, but it didn't really work out at Liverpool. So I think, yeah, if I was Danny Ings, I'd be content to stay there because he's got a really good thing going. He's playing well. He's scoring goals. He seems to be enjoying his football. And after the few years he had where he had those really bad injuries, surely there's got to be a point where it's just about playing football and being happy playing football, and that's what he's doing now. So to me, I'd like to see him stay there, but who knows?
And he's got a good squad around him. He's not the only key player for Southampton. Who else are you looking out for in the next year or so?
As a sucker for somebody who loves a set piece, James Ward-Prowse always jumps off the page. I've been touting him for years as this next big superstar, and maybe he's not. I'm pitching him a little bit too high as to where he is going to end up or where he's playing and ended up. But he's just such a very good player, such a key part of what of the way that Southampton line up. He marshals things very well in midfield. Is creative. Can see a pass. A really intelligent footballer. And his set piece delivery, whether it's from corners or free kicks or direct free kicks, is one of the best in the league. So he's key. I think it will be a big loss to lose Højbjerg to Spurs. Yeah. I think he's a really kind of under the radar good footballer. I think Harrison Reed's left as well to Fulham, but that's not a big deal really because he was already out on loan last season. But I don't know what I saw towards the end of the season of Moussa Djenepo. I thought he looked really lively and one of those players that maybe a little bit erratic, but on his days he can be unplayable. Alex McCarthy in goal has proven himself to be a proper Premier League standard goalkeeper, I think. And then there's Kyle Walker-Peters as well, which I think was a nice bit of business to get him enough Spurs for, I think maybe 11 million that was. I think those maybe Che Adams, because there was a little bit of high hope for him last season, and he didn't really. Well, he didn't. He had a poor season by all accounts. But towards the end of the season, he got a few goals, and you think, well, maybe there is a player there. Maybe it's just a case of him getting acclimatized to Premier League football, acclimatized to Ralph Hasenhüttl, and maybe Che Adams as a breakout season. But I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot to look forward to with Southampton, and I always like Vestergaard because I like just a big, tall centre half who's really good for your own FIFA when it comes to corners. But that's me with rose tinted glasses on.
Yeah, I think with Che Adams, maybe don't come out and say you're going to challenge for the Premier League as a Southampton player.
Yeah, mate.
It's a bad idea to say something like that. But yeah, he really got into some decent form at the end of last season, and having him and Danny Ings on form would make Southampton, a genuine contender for possibly even European football at the end of next season. I did want to mention Kyle Walker-Peters. I thought, losing Højbjerg, as you mentioned, was going to be a big blow for Saints, but getting someone like him in, who's such an exciting prospect, is a really good bit of business, as you alluded to.
Yeah. As somebody who's as of today has been watching the All or Nothing documentary on Spurs, and he's featured in that, and it's just before he goes out on loan to Saints, and obviously that move's now been made permanent. And I think I was surprised Tottenham let him go. I really was, because he seemed like he seems like a really good prospect. He seems like somebody who's ready to play regular Premier League football. He looked good towards the end of last season for Southampton, and so yeah, for Spurs to let somebody go, a young English player who's touted so much for 11 million, that's kind of unheard of, really, in modern day football. Just the default of being young and English. Normally see somebody's price skyrocket, like Jordan Ibe or Dominic Solanke going for 20 million and 25 million, silly money. So yeah, I think Saints have got a real bargain on their hands there, and that just is another name to bring into the back line. I think they still could do with a few more players. Mario Yoshida left on a free transfer, Southampton, but wasn't getting as much game time as he'd like towards the end of the year, I think. And at 32, I think maybe it's a good move. And Sampdoria is a great club to go to. Love me some Sampdoria. So, but I think Southampton, they could do with a few more bodies. But if they can get a couple more names through the door, ideally, I guess, by the weekend, which might be a bit too soon, or at least by the time the transfer window closes, then, yeah, there's a good foundation there to build on from what they achieved last season to, all it needs is a few tweaks, a few more players here, a little bit more quality, and it wouldn't be unheard of if this time next season, well, not this time next season, but by the end of the season, whenever that is going to be, that Southampton are thereabouts when it comes to the European spots.
Yeah, I sense mid-table was the minimum requirement for them now as a result of last season. And who knows, maybe they'll probably will, in most people's books, finish above Sheffield United. But do let us know your thoughts on both of these sides in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Football, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily football podcasts when you're out and about. You can also continue the conversation on Twitter at WhatCultureFC. Well, actually, follow both of us. You can follow Andrew Pollard at
Culture the Left Peg.
And you can follow me at Adam Wilbourn. Follow us all at WhatCultureFC, as I said. But for now, this has been the Premier League season preview for Sheffield United and Southampton. The next one will, of course, be Tottenham and West Brom, I think.
Yeah.
Nearly there. We've nearly made it. We've got West Ham and Wolves
Ham
after
Wolves.
that. Yeah. So join us for that one. But for now, my thanks, Andrew Pollard. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.